Welcome to Truth, Money, and Freedom. Today is Thursday, May 23rd, 2019. Gang, there's two stories I want to share here today. Because again, we're getting stories out of China and Saudi Arabia about executions, or in this case in China, just, beatings of prisoners. And these are religious prisoners. I'm going to link up both stories below. Won't go into a whole lot of detail. A religious practice called Falun Gong is illegal in China. And I don't really know anything about that religion, but it is some kind of religious practice. So I've heard stories even stranger than this one that breathing exercises were considered a religion and people were killed over exercising, breathing exercises. Let's take a deeper look here. The communist government began arresting and imprisoning hundreds of thousands of Falun Gong practitioners and shipped them to labor camps where they can be re-educated. The video from Tiananmen Square in 2001 reveals hundreds of Falun Gong supporters being arrested by government entities. I'm trying not to be on the pictures here, but it shows that gal, she's pretty badly beaten. Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, on the Chinese side. Now, there's a lot more detail about one particular person's story, and that's her. And but I'll link this down below so you guys can look at it. Once again, I bring this stuff up, guys, because this is a trading partner with the United States, a big one. And I realize we're in a trade war right now, which is actually a currency war. However, I do believe it is very, very important for people to realize that we choose to do trade with countries that are monsters towards their own populations. And we can't seem to affect any change in that. We can't get them to actually start looking at their human rights abuses in any way that makes sense to our culture. Let's go to the next story. Saudi Arabia to behead author, journalist, and cleric on terrorism charges. Okay. Saudi Arabia has been killing a lot of people recently, execution, and they do it by beheading. And let's find out more about what they're going to be doing here. Saudi Arabia will execute 3 prominent scholars who are being held on multiple charges of terrorism shortly after the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Okay, let's find out what we're dealing with here. One of the men was arrested in September of last year after he tweeted a prayer for reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Qatar amid the neighbors' diplomatic crisis. Okay, so basically he tweeted a prayer for, Saudi Arabia and Qatar to not be at war anymore, not to have tensions between the two nations. Apparently that's a bad thing because he is going to be beheaded for it. Okay, so that's his crime there. He tweeted a prayer of reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Okay, so let's go through what these men did. Guys, this is kind of important. I'm sorry I'm, bringing this stuff time and time again, but I think this is actually important. We need to know what Saudi Arabia is doing. Now, we know 37 nationals were beheaded last month, and one of them was crucified, and then 37 beheaded. Let's see. At least 105 people, 44 of them are foreign nationals and have been executed by Saudi Arabia in 2019. Okay, the oil-rich kingdom carried out 149 executions in 2018. Okay. Let's see. Al-Oda, Al-Qarni, and Al-Omari, described as moderate Saudi Sunni scholars, will now be sentenced to death and executed shortly after Ramadan concludes next month. There's been no comment from the Saudi authorities as of yet. The cleric Al-Odal, or guys, I can't pronounce their names, Al-Awada, is known for comparatively progressive views on Sharia and homosexuality, has been described as by the UN as a reformist. In a tweet shortly before his arrest, he appeared to reference the Riyadh's blockade of Qatar, writing, "May God harmonize their hearts for the good of their people." Okay, so that's what he tweeted. He tweeted that, and what happens? Let's see. Al-Qarni's a preacher, academic, author, and Al-Amari's a broadcaster with TV station called For Youth. The three were arrested September of 2017 amid Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salomon's crackdown on perceived dissidents. Dissidents, now we're using that word now. Terrorists and dissidents. They are awaiting trial in Riyadh. The Saudi government source told the Middle East Eye they will not wait to execute these men once the death sentence has been passed. Okay, so yeah, that's what's going on here, guys. We are, doing business with these folks. We are dependent on Saudi Arabia to keep the dollar strong for oil trade as the head of OPEC. So we tolerate this nonsense. This is what we effectively try to do when we trade with other nations, is try to imbue with them our sense of right and wrong. But at the same time, the Middle East has had their own way for a long, long time. But my contention is we shouldn't be trading with them. It's that simple. That's what I'd like to say here with this. We should not be trading with Saudi Arabia. We should literally go our own way. And they can do what they want to do, and we can do what we want to do. But because the United States is so addicted to oil, we put up with this nonsense. Now let's go back to China. In China, people are brutally beaten and killed for their religious beliefs, just like in Saudi Arabia. If you're not in the, in the right religion here, which would be Islam, you're in trouble. If people literally say, hey, homosexuals, let's not kill them, let's talk to them, you're dead. Someone happens to be Christian, you're dead. Guys, it's that simple in these nations. Now, I've been told over and over again that things are not that bad in China, and that these stories are made up about what's going on in China, about brutally beating and killing people for religious reasons. But these stories keep coming up. So I've been told by someone who actually lived in China that these stories are not true. They're made up, and they're literally just people trying to get people to hate China for some reason. But I have been hearing these stories literally for 20 years. So I'm tending to think that there might be some truth to this. And the story here is the story of one person. So if you guys care to, go ahead and click on it and read the story. This is something I've always wanted to bring attention to, is the persecution of Christians. And both countries do this, Saudi Arabia and China. And I know others are going to tell me that's not true, but I don't know, gang. There's just too many stories about this. So we are Truth, Money, and Freedom. We do try to get to the bottom of what's going on in other nations with persecution of Christians. But it does appear that both of these countries do persecute Christians. So both stories will be linked below as always, and I will continue creating podcasts whenever I have a chance and whenever I see stories like this. I thank you guys very much for listening to Truth, Money, and Freedom. Sorry about the several day without podcasts. Like I said, I'm working quite a bit right now, so I don't have a whole lot of time. But when the time comes up again, I'll be making more podcasts. You can believe it. Okay, take care, gang. Have a wonderful day. May God bless you.